The Russian ruble is continuing its downward trend following the drop in oil prices and fears of further sanctions over Ukraine. The currency isn't the only thing falling, though. So are attitudes towards the West, as CCTV's Tom Barton reports.
Russian investor Oleg Grinko. He's critical of the West and in favor of shutting down Russian imports from there, a view seldom heard before the crisis.
Russians are capable of withholding from comfort. As soon as the ability manifests itself in people, Russia could take any step. Okay, I won't have a new TV and an Italian jacket. Okay, I'll stand in line again for milk and bread like in the 90s. The main thing is that I always have my milk and bread.
These days, it's not hard to find Russians who say similar things to Oleg.
US and Western Europe countries are not very reasonable in their sanctions, because the sanctions are not against the authorities, but against all the country, including the people.
Ukraine is guilty. It was them who wanted to secede from us. Before that, we lived in friendship and peace, and everything was good.
The USA think of themselves as the country that dominates the world.
Criticism of the West and of Ukraine's government is frequent from Russian media and politicians.
The topics of Ukraine and sanctions are where politics and business have come to meet in Russian public life. For the past decade, the skyscrapers of Moscow city were a symbol of Russia's attempt at a pro-business focus. But many of those offices are empty now. This crisis has changed the entire public discourse here. The language of security and politics now has the upper hand.
Russia's finance minister said recently that the country couldn't afford a $576 billion military spending program. His predecessor resigned in protest after his opposition to proposed military spending was ignored. If the economy continues to slide, say economists, Russians could start to become far less enthused with their government.
If the situation gets worse, then of course people's impression will change. I really hope that the situation doesn't get to that. We need to agree with the whole world, because to be in isolation now in the 21st century, even for such a big country like Russia, would be impossible.
Polls of public support for Russian President Vladimir Putin have now fallen below 50% from a high earlier in the year. Tom Barton, CCTV, Moscow.